Hello everyone, welcome to another NASCAR Thunder 2004 modding video. In this video we're doing the 2025 pack. Big shout out immediately to John Fedor for all of the beautiful paint schemes for 2025 and the templates and you know, all that paint work. I just put the mod data together that was necessary to make it run in the game, and a couple of little images, just the pit box signs and stuff like that, nothing major. John Fedor did most of, by most of I mean he did all the paint schemes and most of the work for this. I put the stats together, I put the data together to make the mod pack complete, but big credit to him. After you've downloaded the mod tool to install this pack, all you have to do is take this NTO4 data file and from the zip and copy it over to your mod master folder like this. Well, that's going to move it, so I'm going to just copy with Control C, or right click copy would also work. Then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to paste with Control V, and when it pops up and it says about overwriting files, you want to hit replace the files in the destination. If it prompts you, this should only really happen when you're updating the pack. It shouldn't happen out of the gate. You guys probably won't get this prompt at all. And that's it. At that point, you're ready to fire up the mod tool to apply some of the changes to the game and apply the pack itself and everything else that you want to include there. As you can see, I have the mod tool open. If you have not used the mod tool before, this part's going to be pertinent to you. I'm not going to do a full tutorial. There's other videos that go more in depth. There's also our website which goes more in depth. So those resources are available and will be where I'm going to point you to for more details on this. However, once you follow the basic setup steps, and by that I mean to the point where you've got the cheat folder here, the texture output folder, all that stuff, that's where we're going to pick up here for this video. So you can do your options here. The force default paints, I'm going to highly recommend just using that one and not randomizing, and we'll get into why in a little bit. And same with manually selected. There's no reason to use those anymore with the current version. I'm going to remove those options eventually, probably, but I haven't yet for one reason, but we're not going to get into that. So the main thing here, you got your career year stat adjustment. If you're going to do race now or season mode, I recommend this setting here. If you're going to start a career, I recommend year 1 and just working your way through. And if it's too easy or too difficult, you can always offset from this. It's just kind of a guideline. It's not a hard set rule of you must play this difficulty at this year. But this affects the driver ratings a little further beyond the core game. And I also want to note at this point that as of release of this, the stats are based on the season up to and including Kansas. So as the races go on, there will be little updates to the stats files. If you want to keep up to date and you want to go race to race with the real season, then you can do that as well, at least for the tracks we have. I'll go over the schedule in a bit. But first thing you're going to want to do is select your core pack, the 2025 Cup. If you've installed it correctly, as the steps earlier outlined, then you should be good to go. It should be the only one in your list unless you've used this before. And hit load core pack. You won't need the sub pack. That's not necessary. That's something you could watch the other videos for. The only thing is, if you're going race to race, you may want to select a couple of race stats to apply, and this is based on their real season. So it's only going to work. Don't select anything beyond Kansas unless you know for sure you got an update. But if you want to run Daytona and you want to run it based on Daytona stats and Talladega stats combined, then and how much you want them to apply, you can do that selection. So essentially, the better they performed in those races that you select, this includes not just how they finished but how they ran. You can set this to 90% for Daytona, 10% for Talladega, and their race stats are going to be 90% based on how they did in the Daytona 500, how they ran, and none of their season stats are applied. but I usually run 35-15. It's up to you what you run, but that's what I run. And then it's 50% of the whole season, and then race 1 and 2 together. The track stat adjustment, this is for the in-game difficulty. So there's this large table here which has offsets, and you can change any of these. So if you run Daytona and you're like, oh, that was too easy, you could change it from 110% to 120% or 115%, whatever you think is appropriate. And that'll affect the stat modifier for the actual what stats get output to the game. So again, this makes it tougher or easier depending on the track. There are some minimums and maximums though for the values. The minimums are the only thing you'll have to worry about for year 1. The maximums when you get to year 5 and 6. So essentially year 1, like I have Bristol at 40%. I don't think it even goes that low anymore. I think really this is probably more like 70% because at least for most of the field, the back of the field. When you're running this at 100%, the back of the field is pretty much going to be as slow as they're going to be. They can't really get much slower in year 1 than what it's set to. So this doesn't do a whole lot if you're running in the back, but in the first year, but it will definitely affect race now and other settings more. Up top, you've got the prevent retirements. Oh, actually, I missed one thing down here. The rookie year to apply. So I have this as 1990 because of the mod I was playing last, but you set this to 2025. That way it applies the rookie drivers for the 2025 season. Prevent retirements, make sure you have this checked up top. And career year override, so the career mode ends in 2023 no matter what you do. So I don't recommend that for this particular pack, but if you wanted to change what year the career mode's in to make it shorter or longer or whatever, you could do that, or you can make it an equivalent, 2005 for 2025 and whatever you want to do, something like that. But you have to check this box and type in the year you want it to be. But if you set it to 2025, in actuality, it's not going to work. You're not going to be able to do a race. It's just going to tell you, like, career's over. The race lengths here, so in-game race length, this is what you select in the game. And then the output race length, this is to fine-tune it further. So the game limits you to 3, 5, 10, 25, 50, 100. But if, say, I want to run 20% races, then you essentially use this for what you're going to select in the game and for what your tire wear and fuel consumption is going to be based off of. So, the game makes you pit. When you run 10%, the fuel consumption and tire wear increases, and you have to pit at about the 5% mark race length wise. So you could take this 10% and make it 20, and that will work, but then you'll have to pit, I guess, 3 times over the course of the race. But if you put it at 25% and you just shorten the race down to 20, you should only have to pit as many times as you would normally in 25, which depending on the track is 1 or 2, I think. The other things here, so this one you might want to actually change. So original manufacturer, new manufacturer. It might load in the pack. I forget if this saves with the pack. I'll have to resave it. But set Dodge to Toyota. Pontiac's not used, but the Chevy, Toyota, and Ford. That's just the text that will show up. This is not for the icon on the results screen. We didn't update that. That can be updated. I just didn't get to it. So that's just that. And the use custom AI settings. This feature, I need to double check this is working. I've had a lot of people saying they don't think this is working like it used to, but I still think it is, but who knows? So I gotta look into it and make sure. But use custom AI settings. If you check this box, you can change the defensiveness, rec frequency, aggressiveness, mistakes, and pit strategy. This is normally locked when you pick rookie, veteran, or legend. It's hidden settings behind the scenes that just get locked differently. So for rookie, they have low defensiveness, low aggression, low pit strategy, high mistakes, high rec frequency. For legend, they don't wreck at all. It's actually the opposite. It's high defense, high aggression, high pit strategy, low rec frequency, low mistakes. I personally like to run with low defense and high everything else, just because they block like mad on high defense. I mean, granted, maybe that's accurate for 2025. Maybe I should run that up. But actually, now that I think about it, it probably should be. So you could run these at max so that they have more mistakes and stuff like that. You know, this should work. If not, I'm going to be looking into this soon. So maybe by the time you download this, it'll be updated. If not, I recommend joining our Discord. I do, you know, updates in one of the channels. I say, hey, this update's out. I don't make videos for every single update. There's bug fixes and you know, different things that get changed all the time. So I don't put those things in a video every time. So please join the Discord if you want to stay up to date. Now, these other tabs you're not going to have to touch. I will note, though, the qual times one, this only really works for season and race now. And then in career mode, it actually, they adjust it based on your car rating. So I can't quite pinpoint and set these values to be what I want them to be. So qualifying might be easy and hard at some tracks versus others, just like in the base game. I can't really do much about that, unfortunately, for career mode. The player tab, I cover this in a few other videos, but if you want to run a custom paint scheme and you paint one up or someone paints one for you, this is kind of the place to do this for career mode. But technically, you don't need to do any of these steps to actually run your own paint scheme in career. You just have to export your car in career mode every time your sponsors change to run a custom paint and the pit signs and all that stuff. This tool, it just slightly makes that easier. It also changes what your display car name, your name, all that stuff is in the career mode, just some of that data. But do not use the season mode option. I don't recommend that one right now, just because I changed the way that the player car works recently. So really just either apply them for career mode or don't apply them at all. But this is just my stuff from my 1990s mod, so it doesn't quite affect what you guys are going to be using it for. The other two tabs, don't worry about. Those are for making the packs from scratch, so you shouldn't have to mess with those, and I highly recommend you don't mess with those with this pack. Up top, it should say Extra Textures 2025. That should load in with the pack by itself. And then, so essentially, when you're going race to race, I know I explained all these different things, but when you're going race to race, you're really just going to hit this drop down, select the pack, hit Load Core Pack, change what race stats and what track stats you want for outside the game for the driver ratings, and then inside the game for what track you're going to race on. Those are the only things that I recommend changing, and obviously this table represents this value, as I mentioned. That's really about it. And make sure the rookie year, and make sure Toyota's in here. Make sure those things apply. Beyond that, just go ahead and hit Finalize Pack. And the only place you're going to be going then, I will explain these other tabs briefly, though they're fully explained on our website. But the only other tab you're going to care about after you finalize is the Finalize tab. I recommend on-checking this one driver per number active for the most part, although for the 2025 pack, nobody in the pack has a repeat number, so it really won't do anything either way, so it's totally fine for this pack. But by default, I have 35 drivers set to full-time, meaning they're definitely going to start every race, and I have 12 drivers set to part-time. And none of them are set to fantasy. Now, Burt Myers and Tim Brown, if you don't want them in the mix because they weren't really running, well, I guess Burt ran one actual race during the season, but you can set them to fantasy so they don't run if you want to disable them from being in the mix. However, the rest of the field is, what they need to be here, so should be good to go for that. Now, if you want to actually limit it to a 40-car field or less to the actual race, what you do is you just set any of the people you want to disable, you have to set them to disabled, and then they won't be in the race. So if you want Truex to only run Daytona and then not run after that, you'll want to set them to disabled. And honestly, at that point, I would recommend saving either a sub-pack or renaming the core pack and saving another core pack so that you have what changes you want here. I'd say core pack if you want the changes to be like permanent. If you want the changes to be just an extra option in the basic options, the quick load, then you could do that as well. Either one's fine. Once you have this set up the way you want, you could hit recount to see these things. You could hit recalc stats if you want to change driver ratings and stuff like that. But once you're happy with what's on this page, and again, I'm not going into all detail of this because there's a lot going on and there's other options, but basically this is what it should automatically go off the real races and stuff like that you've selected in the main general tab. But from here, I recommend, or not recommend, you should hit generate paints in PNatch. I will say though, technically once you've done this pack one time, you don't need to generate paints anymore. You can just generate the PNatch only, because the PNatch is essentially the cheat file that the game runs off of to change the stats, change the names, the roster, all that stuff. The paints are just the texture files, and once they're loaded one time, unless there is a paint update to this pack, which there might be in the future if there's added drivers and added paint schemes later down the road, then you would want to regenerate both. But otherwise, the first time you do this, generate paints in PNatch, the second time they're on, you can just generate PNatch only, and it'll go quicker. So once you click that, it's going to load. It's going to take a minute to, for me it only took a few seconds, but it can on some computers take a minute to run through. I do want to note on the points adjustment tab here, I've loaded the 2017 Cup adjusted stats or points. The reason they're adjusted, so it's your normal points are 1 point per position, 5 bonus points for winning the race versus the like for playoff points sake, stuff like that. But these are, to my knowledge, these are still the current points. We can't do a fastest lap bonus point. But the reason I'm saying to use the adjusted one is one thing I've not found in the game data is where the bonus points are for leading a lap and leading most laps. We can't really take that out, unfortunately. I've not found a way to do it yet. But the reason I adjusted these points is these are essentially 5 times the points, because you wouldn't want the regular points like this, and then if second place leads most laps, they get 45 points. If first place leads most laps, they get 50 points. So you don't want that many bonus points going on to these. You really kind of, at most, would want it to count for like 1. You'd want 1 point for leading a lap, maybe. 1 point for most laps led, maybe. So to get that equivalent, I have the adjusted one. It essentially, everything's just 5 times what the regular is. Just to make that lap led bonus, only count for like 1 position difference in the race, or 1 position more worth of points. So if you finish 12th and you lead a lap, you get the same points as 11th. Whereas in the regular one, if you finish 12th and lead a lap, you'd get the equivalent points of 7th. So, just so it's not so extreme, I recommend the adjusted one. You can change these further and save them if you want your own custom point standings. And then just make sure you save core pack when you have it loaded in. I want to note on the points adjustment page, there's a way to run the playoffs. I cover this in a different video. I'll try to provide a link to that below. Where I explain how this works, because it's a little bit different than normal. The only difference between that video and now, the only thing I changed, I mentioned that you have to load into the game, load into your save your career, then reset the tool. Don't run this section, and you have to do all that again. Really, now I changed it so that when you load into the game with your updated points, which you do still have to do 1 time per essentially each playoff round, then in the game you can just uncheck a box in the cheats menu after you've applied the stats. So, or the points change. I know it's I'm being a little vague, but if you can't figure it out, if you get to that point of the season and you can't figure it out, just go ahead and hit us up in Discord, and myself or somebody else can help you. The scheduled tab, I have a custom schedule for 2025 a little bit. I'm going to go over the differences in a minute, but essentially if you want to add a race, this is what is available in the game for races. I recommend not using the speed zone tracks though. They can get funky, they can cause issues, but the other races should be fine. The All-Star and the Shootout, make sure there's only one in the schedule for each of these and that they're in the correct orders. And the Shootout is... actually, the Shootout, I don't think it matters when it is, but the All-Star Open should be before the All-Star. And you shouldn't need... you cannot repeat those. Now, any other track, any other scheduled item, you can have repeats of. So you can run Bristol Night. You can run 36 race season at Bristol Night if you wanted to. You cannot exceed 36 races for the main schedule, but you can exceed it with the Shootout and the All-Star Open. So technically this list goes to 39 races. Make sure at the top you overwrite season 36. I mean, technically you could do the others, but what that means is what you select in the game when you select a 36 race season or whatever you have up here. This is what you're setting. So if you set this to 12 and you apply a 36 race season, then in the game you'd want to select 12 to get this custom schedule. The other schedules will get messed up, so make sure you, like in the game, the other schedules will get messed up a little bit with this update, but just make sure you select whatever you have here. So just to go over this a little further, I did swap some tracks out because we don't have them in the game. We can't make new tracks to the game as of this point. I don't know if we'll ever be able to, but currently we can't. So we got what we have, what's in the 2003 season, or came out in the 2004 game for fantasy tracks, stuff like that. Those are our options. I did change some of the race lengths to reflect real life as well. You can do that with this 100% lap override. You just change what the 100% length is, and it'll automatically adjust what to output into the game based on your selection on the previous tab of what race length you want to run. This is just a little preview so you know how long or short they are. So like the All-Star Open's super short when you're running a 10% or 25% race length in the game. So if you want to make the All-Star longer, you can do that just by typing a number in here, and now the Open's 18 laps. If you delete it, and it resets back to that. So you could change those race lengths if you want, but the big changes that I made were for Coda, I put the Sawmill Fantasy track in. I changed the payout as well because the fantasy tracks seem to have bigger payouts than the average race. So I dropped that down a little bit. You can change the payouts of any race you want over in this column. If it's blank, then it'll just use the default. So Coda became Sawmill, or Sawmill's being used in place of Coda. Later in the schedule, they go to Nashville, and I swapped that out for California. Autodromo, I swapped out to Talladega Infield. This was a really tough choice. And if you wanted to replace any of these, let me just show you real quick. So say you didn't want the Talladega Infield here. All you have to do is click anywhere in the row that you don't want, hit Remove Selected Races, and then go ahead and select the race that you actually want to run. So if you don't like the Talladega Infield and maybe you wanted, I don't know, say the Pocono Infield, you could just select that from this drop down and hit Insert Race Above Selected, and it'll put it right where we were. So I'm going to change that back. So remove, and I see Talladega Infield, and insert above, and now that's back. The Chicago Street Course I changed to the New York track in the game. That one seemed to make the most sense there, even though it doesn't really drive like the Chicago Street Course. It's not really designed. It's much more open than that, but that was just a swap I did. Iowa, I switched to Richmond Day. Now, this one some people might not like because Richmond Night is two races later, so you're going to run Richmond like pretty close together. You could space them out if you want, remove it from down here and insert it up top, because Richmond doesn't have a spring race anymore. So you could move that around if you want, but I threw these in just, exactly when the Iowa race is when... Sorry, the game was going real fast. And exactly when when Iowa is in real life, I swapped it in that slot for Richmond Day. I changed out Gateway for Rockingham. I felt like that was another good choice. I mean, Rockingham's being flirted with coming back anyway, and Gateway's a unique track, Rockingham's a unique track, and it's not in the schedule, so I thought that'd be a good one. Kansas Fall Race, I switched to Kansas Night. That's only a slight change. I I figured since we have the spring Kansas race in the daytime, rather than having 2 of the same Kansas race, I'd throw a night race in. The Charlotte Roval, I swapped to Texas Infield. They're not really similar tracks, except for the fact that the 1.5-milers are, but the actual road course is very different. You actually go the opposite way around the track in the Texas Infield course, but yeah, again, you can change that out if you don't like it, or just remove it entirely. You don't even have to swap it out. You can just get rid of it. I also shorten it up quite a bit to try to match the Roval laps. The Texas Infield, it's a pretty long course, so it's not a really long course, but it's a I think the laps are pretty high on that anyway. And last but not least, I changed the fall Las Vegas race to Las Vegas Night, which again is technically a fantasy track in the game. Also, hang on, that's a mistake. I have Talladega Night in there. I mean, you could run Talladega Night, but that should be the Talladega 2 race. Yep, so that's that. I also have Martinsville Night in for Martinsville for the fall race. This one, I know it's not supposed to be a night race, but there are many times that this has ended at night, so I thought that was a fun switch. But again, if you don't like that, you can remove it and then put Martinsville 2 in its place and just insert it into that spot. You do have to remove before you can insert, because the maximum tracks again is 39 technically, including the All-Stars and the All-Star and the Shootout. Then it ends up being 39 events, but it's 36 technically speaking, as far as how many points races you can run in the season. The sponsors tab is not used by this pack, unfortunately. Didn't really get time to do this, but I did set up previous sponsors for different packs. If you have the 90 or 91 pack, you can do that, although it would be kind of a weird mismatch of what companies existed and were in the sport at the time versus now. But you know, just a thought. And this is covered more in depth. This really only changes what's visually offered to you in the game, and it just kind of takes the place of existing ones. So it doesn't really change a whole lot in the game. It's just it doesn't actually change the textures that go on your car in the game. It's just for more of a lore thing, or doing your own custom paints, so that you don't have to just straight up pick what you want to paint. You can kind of go off of what sponsors you get. Rival Ally tab, this is just for race now and season mode. I auto added all the teammates as 70 allies. These can be adjusted. I'm not going to go into how to change these, but you could add rivalries too. I didn't add any in particular because I don't know how many times I could add Hocevar with other people, or Chastain for that matter. So I know they got rivalries. I didn't go into that, but if you wanted to, you could select driver A here. I know they're not in order alphabetically. They're actually kind of almost in points order, I think. And then you can select driver A and B, set whether the rival or ally, the rating you want, and then hit add. There is a maximum limit on how many of these you can have, and when you add it, it adds it in both directions. So it is what it is there. When I say it adds it in both directions, I don't mean it adds it in this table both directions. I mean that if it says William Byron and Kyle Larson here, then in the game it applies it both ways, but it doesn't list it twice here. It just applies it both ways in the game. So I just wanted to note that so you understand how that works. Last but certainly not least are the live tools. So the live tools, you can live edit. For any of the live tools, you have to be in the game and in the particular game mode that correlates to some of these to actually do anything with it. So the career rival ally edit, the pick career rename, and the car part cheating tool, different options here are all for career mode. So you have to be in a career mode save at open in the game while this tool is running for that to work. To use these, I'm not going to go in depth on the career tools here. I'm just going to go over a couple of the other ones. So the scoring pylon is one that you select what car you're driving in the game. And if it's in season mode, you select the driver. If it's in career mode, you leave it as career. And you hit the checkbox for pylon, and it's going to pop up a window like this. It will have stats in it if you're in a race, but if you're not in a race, it's going to be blank. It might have garbage data in it too, but essentially, if you need to, after you've loaded into a track is when you should fire this up. And if you fire it up too early or at the wrong time, then you can just check this box to turn it back off, change what you need to change, and then or get into the track in the game, and then check the box again to relaunch the window, and that'll reset it. So if you ever see that the data's not matching up, just literally turn it off and on again. Just the pylon checkbox, not the whole program. Briefly, you can select how many drivers are shown around you, whether it's the whole field or just a few people. But currently, the stats are based versus the leader for the intervals, so that's not going to be accurate. You can select drivers to highlight, so if you want to highlight people that are in the playoffs later in your playthrough or something along those lines, you can do that. But the different stats you can show the driver names are a toggle on or off. The lap number, the rival ally in career mode, whatever they were before the race is what we'll show. The best lap, whether it's time or speed for each driver, and the interval. And the interval one kind of live updates, so it might be wrong for a lap when you first turn it on, but once you get a lap in, then it should be correct. So package sponsors, once you're in career mode and you've gotten a package offer, you can actually change what offer that is. You can select the driver that you want to get an offer from, or the ride that you want an offer from. Note that not every option will necessarily be here. I think for the 2025 pack, they pretty much all will. No, I see there's a couple that aren't. Unfortunately, some of the cars in the game cannot be offers, so there is a little bit of a limitation there. But this is definitely a way bigger list than what you'll end up getting when you're playing the game naturally. So if you want more sponsor offers available, a wider range, then you can either randomize from the drop down and hit apply. The game has to be open, and for this to work, it's recommended that you're already loaded into career mode before you apply to make sure it works. And then once you go into your package sponsor menu, you should see the different option. If you hit apply while you're in the menu, it's not going to update. You have to actually pop out and back in for it to visually update. But you can click randomize to get a random offer, or you can select from the drop down if you want a specific ride. Live paints, I'm not going to cover the player season car. Again, that's a bit of a different option that's covered in a different video. I'm not going to go into detail on that one. But what I do want to go over is the options here for vanilla paints. So I actually need to rename that. It should just say live paints. But essentially, in the game, when you have the cheats menu up, you'll notice there's a checkbox for default paints. And when you first load into the game and you first enable cheats, like normal with our other packs, you should have all of these checked. But once you've loaded into the game with this one checked, you can just go ahead and uncheck it. If you don't uncheck this, then the tools options here won't work. But the tools options, so you can go ahead and select people's paint schemes. So it's recommended to have the game open before you get to the live tools for the mod master. So if you experience issues with this, just shut the mod tool off, turn it back on, load the core pack for the 2025, finalize, and go directly to live tools. You don't have to regenerate for the live tools to work. However, they may be desynced if you changed any settings. So if something's acting funky, just go ahead, regenerate, and in the game make sure that you re-enable and hit reload cheats as well, and then have default paint schemes checked for a second, then go ahead and uncheck it, and then the mod tool should work. So you can see I have Ross Chastain's Trackhouse here. When I hit apply to game, if I switch off and onto his car, it'll change to that Trackhouse scheme. If I want it to be back to his default Busch Light scheme, I hit apply to game. And you also can just select left or right if they have multiple paint schemes listed. We didn't load these in the way that the base game does multiple paint schemes because the emulated version of the game doesn't seem to randomize. Also, some cars don't have multiple paint schemes, and modding that would take a lot of extra work. So I thought I'd keep it here because this is a little bit easier, especially if you want to change everybody's paint scheme for a race to something specific. This is a lot easier than going through the menus and changing it. Also, this works for career and season mode. So if you want people to run specific paints, you can. So I could go ahead and hit apply. And now he's in his Red Bull scheme for Shane Van Gisbergen. And back to default. And there he's in the WeatherTech scheme, stuff like that. So you can randomize these. You can reset them all to default. You just have to hit apply after you've made your selections, randomized or reset. Like apply is what puts it into the game. So it has to be done each time if you want them to change. And the rest of this video is going to be just kind of a showcase of all of the paint schemes. I'm going to throw in some royalty-free music. So if you got your own favorite tunes, you can go ahead and switch to that. But that's pretty much going to do it for this video. Thanks everyone for watching. Thanks everyone for checking this out. I hope you guys really enjoy the 2025 pack. Again, big thanks to John Fedora for doing all the paint schemes. This is quite amazing to have this together so early in the season. You know, we're all looking forward to the new 2025 game from the iRacing team and those guys. But you know, in the meantime, to scratch the itch, you could fire up Thunder 04 with some 2025 cars and drivers, and you know, keep that itch scratched till the newer game comes out. And again, just a reminder, if you guys have any questions or problems, the best I can recommend is check the website for some info first. And if you still can't figure out how to get through whatever you're facing, whatever issues you're having, then please join the Discord. And you know, there's a mod troubleshooting channel. There's a couple of pin posts there for specific issues. And also, if you just still are stuck, you could just message us there. Myself or someone else should be able to help you, and we'll get you figured out and get things running for you smoothly. Alright guys, enjoy the cars showcase, and I'll see you guys next time we do some modding stuff. I don't know what's next exactly, but you know, this is a pretty big one here. Thanks again. Later.